Hello, welcome to this video on decision trees. So in this video we're going to look at drawing a decision tree, interpreting a decision tree, and then evaluating a decision tree. So let's start off with our scene setting story. And we're going to imagine here that I am throwing a party for people like me without much hair. Now, being a business-minded person, I'm going to charge people to come for this party, and I'm going to also charge them for buying food and drink at my party. I'm a little bit concerned, though, about the weather. There is a chance the weather might be quite nice and sunny, but there is also a chance that it might be rainy. So I need to make a decision whether I'm going to host my party indoors or outdoors. And to help me make this decision, I'm going to use the business technique of a decision tree. The information in this table shows me what the return I'm going to get from my event for each of the different types of weather. So for example, if the weather is fine and I hold my party outdoors, I'm going to make £10,000. However, if I hold it indoors, I'm only going to make £5,000. If the weather is poor and I hold it outdoors, I'm only going to make £4,000. But if the weather is poor and I hold it indoors, I'm going to make £7,000. From past weather records, there is a 60% chance of fine weather and a 40% chance of it being poor. The indoor event will cost £2,000 for me to arrange. The outdoor event will cost £3,000 for me to arrange. And the big question here is, should I hold my event indoors or outdoors? How do I make this decision? I need to use a decision tree. So what is a decision tree? Well, a decision tree is a mathematical model, and it's used to help managers, or me in this example, make decisions. We use the estimated returns of outcomes and the probabilities of those outcomes to make calculations. And based on these calculations, we can decide whether the net gain from a particular decision is worthwhile. So let's now create my decision tree. So first of all, I need to know my potential outcomes. So my potential returns for different courses of action. So indoors or outdoors, if the weather is fine or poor. I also need to know the probabilities. So 60% chance of fine weather, 40% chance of it being poor. I also need to know the cost of each action. So the indoor event will cost £2,000, the outdoor event will cost £3,000. So I just start my decision tree by drawing this square here, which we call a decision node. So this square represents the point at which I need to make a decision. Off that, I then have my three options. So I can decide either to have my party indoors, my party outdoors, or often there's a third option, which is just to do nothing. So these lines represent my choices, and they're connected here to a decision node where I indicate making a decision. Underneath each of these options, I write the cost. So the cost of holding the party indoors is £2,000, outdoors £3,000. The cost of doing nothing is nothing, so I've left that blank. I now need to think about the probability element. And so I introduce this. This is called a chance node. And this is where I now introduce not my decisions, but my chances, my probability of the outcomes. So we call these chance nodes, and we draw circles, and they indicate where there is a probability of two different outcomes. Decisions are where I make a choice. So the probability here, if I hold my party indoors, I've got two possible outcomes. A 60% chance that the weather is fine and a 40% chance of the weather being poor. And depending on the weather, I have a potential outcome. If it's fine, I'm going to make £5,000. If it's poor, £7,000. So I would draw this. Again, two lines to indicate the two possible outcomes, fine weather or poor weather. Underneath I write the probability, so 60% chance of fine, 40% chance of poor, and at the end I put the potential returns of those two outcomes, the payoffs. Similarly, I will do it for going outdoors. 60% chance of fine, 40% chance of poor weather, but my payoffs are slightly different this time. If I hold it outdoors and the weather's fine, 10,000. If I hold it outdoors and the weather's poor, it's 4,000. If I do nothing, well, I'm going to get nothing back. So this is my decision tree. Decision tree comprises decisions, which we indicate with a rectangular square node, and chances, probabilistic outcomes, which we indicate with circles, chance nodes. So that's how we construct a simple decision tree. We look at decisions and probabilities and the potential outcomes. Now we're going to have a look at calculating and interpreting these diagrams. So again, here's my basic information, my payoffs for my two choices and the chances. And so what I try and do is I try and calculate the expected value. So if I make the decision to hold the event indoors, I don't know if it's going to be fine weather or poor weather, but what would be the expected value? Well, there's a 60% chance of it being fine and getting £5,000. There's a 40% chance of it being poor and getting £7,000. So my expected value is 60% of 5,000, 40% of 7,000, a kind of weighted average. The expected value of holding the event indoors would be £5,800. So what would I gain from holding the event indoors? Well, I also have to take off the cost of the event. So when I subtract the cost of the event, I get the net gain. The net I'm going to gain of holding my event indoors is £3,800. If I was to do the same for the outdoor event, the expected value of holding the event outdoor is £7,600. And so the net gain, when I take off the cost of holding it outdoors, would be £4,600. So what should I do in this situation? Using this tool to analyze my choice, I should hold the event outside, as the net gain of that option is £800 higher than the net gain of holding the event indoors. And so businesses will do a very similar technique, or the same technique, when they're looking at different options, different investment projects, different decisions that they might make. So once I've made my decision to hold the event outdoors, I then go back and I cross out the options that I've rejected. So I haven't done nothing, I haven't done it indoors, I've gone for the outdoor option, so I put lines through the other two to indicate I'm not going for them. So key terms for a decision tree, we're talking about the probability. So this involves probability, so it's the chance of an outcome happening. We talk about expected values, so they're the anticipated value of an investment. I calculate this by multiplying each of the outcomes by the likelihood that that outcome will occur, and then adding together all the values. And then lastly, net gain, the value to be gained from taking a decision. So I take the expected value and I subtract the cost of making that decision. So we've looked at the first 2 points here, drawing one and interpreting one. Now let's look at evaluating a decision tree. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of using this tool if you're a business? Well, advantages, it forces managers to carefully consider options, outcomes, and also the chance of them occurring. Because we include a probability of events occurring, this may be more useful than other investment appraisal techniques when we assume the cash flows are the cash flows. There is no chance or likelihood applied to our estimates. So this is a strong advantage of using a decision tree. We can also look at the best and worst case scenarios. In terms of limitations, again, it's only as useful as the data in them. So how accurate are our expected outcomes, our financial payoffs? How accurate are our probabilities of weather or probabilities of whatever it is that's going to happen? This can be particularly difficult to do with one-off or first-time decisions where there's no historic track record of probabilities. Again, a management might skew the probabilities, or there might be some bias involved in coming up with the estimated outcomes because they have a particular objective or agenda they wish to pursue. This ignores qualitative factors, so it only looks broadly at the numbers. We're not thinking about how our customers will interpret this. We're not thinking about any sort of value-based factors which is looking purely numerical analysis. And again, it's non-dynamic. We're just doing this at one-off point in time, so it might be out of date before a decision is reached. So in this video, we've looked at decision tree diagrams, how we draw them, how we use them to make calculations, and also how we might evaluate them. That's it. Thanks very much for listening.